Hello and welcome to College Radio Day 2022. You are listening to WWSU 106.9 FM, Fairborn, Dayton, Dayton's right choice. And we have a special guest today, the one, the only, President Sue Edwards. And if you want us to call you President Edwards, we can. If you want Sue, we can do Sue.
Good. Let's go. Let's just go with Sue.
I figured.
It really.
Let's go.
I figured.
It rolls off the tongue a little easier.
So, we just want to kind of talk to you a little bit today. Like I said, we talked about earlier before the broadcast. Our theme this year is Voices for Peace, and we want to talk about more and learn more about different experiences from those who weren't born in the United States like we were, and not that necessarily those experiences could be they don't have to revolve necessarily around the theme directly, but we just kind of want to learn more about what your experience was coming to the United States and how your upbringing was and how you ended up where you are now. So
that's a big question, Dylan.
Well, that was the theme. That's
oh my god! Oh my
so
gosh!
we'll take turns and we will go around and around and around.
All right.
But yeah, I just wanted to.
It's going to be fun. It'll be fun.
So we know you're from Australia, but where are you from in Australia?
Okay. Well, actually, I was born in Manchester, England.
Oh, I never knew that.
So I was born in England, and my parents immigrated to Australia when I was 2. So I've lived all my life in Australia until we moved to the United States, but I was originally born in Manchester.
Huh.
So there you go.
So how old were you when you moved to?
I was all of 2 years old.
Wow.
2?
2.
Dang.
Yes.
So technically, are you even from Australia?
Well, I collect citizenship, right? So I'm born in England, so I have British citizenship. I lived in Australia for over 40 years. So technically I'm more Australian, but I also have Australian citizenship. And now I've lived in America since 2006 and I have US citizenship. So, I'm I don't know, multinational.
Yeah, you're everywhere.
I have been everywhere. It feels like that now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I wish I was from everywhere. I'm just from Dayton.
Well, nothing wrong with being from Dayton.
Is your husband and son are they both from? Are they Australian natives?
Yes, they're both Australian natives. So, Greg was born in a small town called Ballarat, which is about an hour from where we lived. And my son Marcus was born in what became my hometown of Geelong, which is just outside Melbourne. So, sort of down the bottom of Australia there.
Can you kind of tell us about your education experience? So you started, we all kind of know the stories, like you first generation student, right?
Yep.
Commuter student.
Yep.
So
neither of my parents finished high school. My dad, actually the reason he came from England to Australia was Australia were in the need of blue collar workers. And so he was a boilermaker, and he and my mum immigrated to Australia because there was work there. And they thought that it would be a great place to raise a family. And so neither of them finished high school. After high school, thought I was going to become a lawyer. And my next door neighbour was was the director of the anatomical pathology at the hospital, which had the forensic lab in it. And they were looking for a lab assistant to sort of, wash dishes and stuff like that. And he said, would I be interested to work over the summer? And I thought it would be a great way to really understand the forensic side, the legal side of forensics. And so I took the job and actually fell in love with the work. And they offered me a continuing position, which then led me to do my associates in medical laboratory science, which was my first degree. But I worked 40 hours a week while I did that. And then after that, I kind of got bored after 8 years of that and was looking for a change. And the skills that I'd sort of developed while working in that field were now in demand in research. And somebody offered me a job in a neuroscience lab. And so I went back to school and got my bachelor's in biology and then my master's in neuroscience, but all the time working full time. Yeah. And so the only time that I was ever a full-time student was in my PhD. So yeah, I didn't take a traditional journey. Mm-hmm. I always commuted to school. It's really very few students live on campus in Australia. Mainly international students live on campus. The rest of us live around the campus and just commute in.
So real quick, being a commuter, I'm a commuter, so I relate to that. And honestly, I didn't get involved here for the first 3 years that I came here. I would show up, go to class, leave, go to work, go home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so one of your big priorities being president was recruitment and to have a comfortable environment for all of our students on campus. So was you being a commuter the driving point for that goal?
I think one of the things that underpins everything that my philosophy is treating our students as human beings first. And so that means, making them feel welcome, making them feel comfortable, ensuring that they've got all of the support mechanisms that they need to be successful. Because I think that's the key to success. If you don't feel as though you fit, if you don't feel like you have a community, it's a little harder to. It's a bit more of a grind to come in and go to classes and then just go home and not really have that connection to others that are going through a similar thing. And so really that's at the heart of everything that we do here, is trying to create that atmosphere where the students are the true center of the universe. And we've done a number of things this year to make sure that our commuter students feel just as engaged and excited about coming to campus as students that may have the luxury of living on campus.
Sure.
And probably a little bit is from my experience, but I really didn't engage much other than in sport. I was an athlete. So other than that, I really didn't engage much with student organizations, again, till I did my PhD, because it was really, I actually had time. When you're working a 40-hour week, which many of our students here do,
Yeah, it's a lot.
while taking, a full load, most of them, it leaves very little time for you to do, other things. And so it's really how do we help students feel that community, but also understand that not everybody is able to, be associated with a club or an organization. That's a challenge.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I've definitely noticed, over the course of the last couple of years, this place has felt extremely more welcoming. I mean, it's a second home now, so I love that. It's been a fun ride.
Well, that's great because I love hearing that too.
I also roped him in to everything. So
You did,
Yeah.
Dylan. You have a tendency to do that to people.
He's got a way with words, I tell you.
I had something, I completely lost it. When you originally started school, like, so you said you went through your associates and you went through, at what point did did you meet your husband and you were married?
So I didn't meet him through school. I also had certifications as a gym instructor.
Oh,
So I met Greg whilst working at a gym. And
That's a love story.
so he
It
was in there
is,
pumping
it is.
iron.
yeah, he was there, and he was training for a triathlon, and I did triathlons, and so we just got chatting, and I dared him to take one of my classes once, and I said if he would survive it, then it was a tough class, So that's where we met, and we just really got to know each other and realized that we had an awful lot in common. And so so we dated for a year, and actually I went overseas for most of that year. I backpacked around Europe for 6 months, and then I think we got married in 1991. So we've been married 31 years this year. So we have a lot in common. So which is great because it's obviously had us in good stead for 31 years.
He actually got his master's here, right?
He did. So he was a tradesperson in Australia. And in
Yeah.
Australia, tradespeople earn more money than medical doctors because they're high demand. And when we moved to America, he, because he didn't have a college degree, he wasn't really being sought out. So he went and sat the GED cold and got a perfect score on the math. And the community college kind of chased him down to say, you could keep going.
Mm.
And so he got his associates at the community college in North Carolina. And then he went and completed his bachelor's
Wow.
at Appalachian State when he was 40. And yes, just at Christmas, I got to give him his MBA in finance from Wright State. So he's an alum of Wright State and very proud of it.
That's amazing. I really didn't know that, but that's actually really cool.
I think there's a lot of stories that are one marketable to non-traditional students to be like, just when you're having, I'm just thinking like when
Yeah.
you're having conversations with a prospective student, like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't like, oh, one of the there's a Raider open house, and there's a student, a prospective student, but his father was also perspective ish.
Yep.
So he was saying, oh, I don't know, I don't think I can ever do it. I have some credit, but I don't think I can. And I was like, I wanted to say, heard the numbers. Like, do you know how many, students there are that have some credit but not a whole credit for to complete a degree?
A large number across the nation.
I was like, that's attractive.
Yes.
So I was like, if you apply and did that and, put yourself, you could do that. And I was like, and especially if it was finishing a master's. So I was like, a lot of those, it's on your own time. So I was like,
Yes.
you don't have to do, some of them are cohort, some are not cohort.
Yeah.
Like you can, so that reminds me a lot that like, that was a conversation I would have been, oh.
And I think that the one thing that I say to everybody is that people always think that I'm too old, right? I'm too old. There's no such thing. In fact, education is is lifelong, and you always should be a lifelong learner. So maybe you did not have the means. I mean, both Greg and I really had no one to show us the path. His younger sister actually was the first one in his family to actually go to college straight from high school. So it really, if you don't have someone showing you the way, it's a really big challenge.
Yeah.
And so many folks in my generation may not have had that person to say you should go to college, and now as they've come through life, they've now got maybe the means to be able to do that. And I always commend people for doing that, because I think you should always aspire. There should be always an aspiration in your life, and you've always wanted to get a degree. Well, why not go back and get it?
Are either one of you a first gen?
Yeah, so I'm the first. Well, my oldest brother. So there's a big age gap in us. My oldest brother, he's 40. He just got his bachelor's 2 years ago in cybersecurity, upon retiring from the Air Force. So now he's working cybersecurity in Vegas. But yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm the first to go straight out of high school. So
That's fantastic.
Adam, I'm going to have to tell you again to get closer to the microphone.
really, it's still messing up. Okay, there we go.
Bella, are you a first gen?
Yes, I am. My sister went to Ohio State and then dropped out and went to cosmetology school. And 2 of my brothers went into the Air Force and the Army. And then my other brother, we don't even talk about him.
Oh, no.
Nathan, if you're hearing this, I'm so sorry. But we don't talk about you that much. But I'm just really excited to be in college. I mean, it's made most of my life. I got involved with a lot of organizations. That's how I met you, is because I work 24/7 with orientation during the summer.
Exactly.
Always doing something there. But that is how I met Sue, was going up, and you came to talk to us. And that was a big thing that I liked about you, is that you do talk to our new students like they're people, instead of being like, hi, I'm the president. You're just like, hi, how are you? What's your major? Stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I do admire that about you.
Well, it's about relationships, right? And you guys know about the 3 R's, and the relationship part is truly at the heart of everything. And you have to forge relationships. And the thing that I cherish the most is those relationships that I forge with everybody, whether you're a student, whether you're a faculty member, a staff member, a member of community. It really is the piece that makes you feel as though what you're doing is incredibly worthwhile.
Yes.
I'm also first gen. Just for the
See, we're a whole room of first
Yeah.
gens. I
You
love
just
that.
love to see it.
It's great.
I noticed at graduation, at last year's commencement,
Yes.
my best friend Connor Algren was graduating. By the way, he told me to say hi to you. I noticed from watching, you went up to every single student and shook their hand and shared a few words with every single one. There wasn't a single student that did not greet you on that day, and that was huge. I mean, that was one of the biggest things that stuck out to me from the entire commencement. So that was something I really enjoyed watching.
Well, it's a day to celebrate, and each of those individuals, we have no idea what they went through to make it to that point in their career. And so it is important to connect with each and every student at a true, authentic level, because, you know, every one of those students have a different story, and every one of them got there regardless of the challenges that face. We did have, like, we had a unifying challenge that we all have experienced, which is the COVID,
Sure.
the COVID pandemic. But, you know, some of those individuals have been plugging away for an awful long time to get to where they got to. And so, you know, I don't know how else to describe it, but, you know, I mean, I want to be celebrating them, jumping up and down with them. I think it's awesome.
It couldn't get any more authentic.
That's
than,
why
than
we're
that.
here,
So,
right? That's the
yeah.
whole reason we do the work that we do, is for that moment at the end that you've forged a relationship with those students, and then you see them be successful, and then you watch them go out and do great things in the world, and then you watch their lives develop. And not a week goes by when I don't hear from one of my past students.
Sure.
And that's just the best thing ever. I mean, and so I just love, I mean, my passion is to work for the students. And so to celebrate them is nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that.
One conversation I had in an earlier session was the role of mentorship in an undergraduate's experience. And I was just curious, like, or even, I guess, any part of your experience, your education experience, could you think of one or two people that really stuck out to you as mentors?
I would not be sitting here with you if it wasn't for people that took the time to tell me that I could. At every single stage of my, really, from high school onwards, you know, and I think that's been the key, and not to becoming a president, but just to fulfill different things in my education. You know, I had a great mentor in the person. Dr. Trithui was his name. He was the head pathologist at Geelong Hospital. And he said, you could really do well in this field. I think you should, I will be happy to pay for your, you know, education if you want to go and get an associate's degree in med lab science. And I said, oh, okay, well, maybe I could do that. And you know, and I think that's the thing, is mentorship is really important. And sometimes it happens organically, and sometimes it has to be arranged. And the organic piece is, you as an individual have to recognize when somebody is giving you an opportunity. You know, I could have said, well, no, I wanted to go to law school. I really don't want that opportunity. But it really was a great opportunity, and I loved the work I was doing. And then, you know, just several different people that really went out of their way. My master's supervisor, you know, I had my son when I was halfway through my master's, and, you know, work was an hour away from home. So I used to drive for an hour, you know, work all day in the lab, drive home another hour. And so I would drive to work with Marcus in the baby seat. He would get into his, I don't know, I call it a pusher, but stroller.
Yeah.
And he would sit in Colin's office all day. Colin would babysit him while I was doing experiments in the lab. I mean, who does that? I mean, and Colin just gave me so much in terms of self-confidence and support that I could keep going. And so that's great. And then my PhD supervisor was a woman, and she was just the most awesome mentor. And so I've been really lucky, you know, to have great mentors in my life. And it's one thing that, you know, we're trying to organize this year for our incoming freshmen. All of my council, so I have 14 people on President's Council. Each one of them are being allocated 10 freshmen to mentor out of the cohort this year. And really informally mentoring. So, you know, having an opportunity to catch up, have coffee, go for lunch, you know, meet in the cafeteria for lunch, just opportunities to get to know these students and really understand the challenges that they face and help them navigate, and give them some, you know, advice from experiences that you've had. And that's really all these people have, is saying, I believe in you
Mhm.
and you can do this. So, you know, sometimes that's all a student really needs at some point, is someone to say, especially when you've got no one at home that really understands why you're doing what you're doing. Um, it's really nice to have someone say, that's great. You're going to be great at this. I think that's that. But mentorship is a really big key, and certainly in professionally, you develop a different set of mentors. Once you've sort of gone through education, you develop a really different set of mentors. And again, I've just been really lucky to have strong influences in my life that I may not have even pursued things if they hadn't sort of taken the time to say, I think you should.
I think that's a great idea, though, about your council members meeting one-on-one with students and whatnot. It just it builds the community even more. And you know, if I would have, if I was an incoming freshman, looking back on my freshman year, I would be absolutely thrilled to hear that. I mean, because there's sometimes people think they have the right mindset on what they want to do, and then they start doing it, and then after they start doing it, there's a lot of doubt, and you start to question yourself
Mhm.
and what you're good for. So to have somebody in your corner reminding you constantly that, hey, you are the one.
Yeah.
It's really all you need.
And
I
when you
mean,
come to those crossroads, it's nice to have someone to bounce something off. I'm thinking of changing my major from, computer science to history. What do I do? Who do I talk to? How can you connect me? I mean, the role of the mentor is to remove obstacles and help them connect them to the appropriate folks so that they can be, you know, advised appropriately. I'm a biology professor. I would take them to talk to a history professor and so that they can understand what their options are moving forward.
yeah.
I think it also humanizes like those relationships, because a lot of times you see, oh, Dean Hoochnuter, and like I would never just call him up because he's the dean, and I would never go and call him, or her, and so I think that also creates like, oh, the vice president of blank is emailing me right now,
Yeah.
about wanting to get coffee.
Well,
What?
it
That's,
shouldn't be intimidating, right? It should be, we're humans as well.
but I think a
So
lot of institutions that's unheard of,
yes,
right?
yes.
It's like you will never see the president. You see him twice a year. That's it. You know.
Well, then we're a little different here, and that's what I love.
It's great. It's phenomenal. I mean, for instance, like I said, I'm the first of the four of us to go into college after high school. So my oldest brothers, I was raised by a single mother, so my oldest brothers were always my biggest mentors. And growing up, always seeking their advice. Once I got to college, they had never been there,
Yeah.
so it was something like, okay, I would love to ask. Get your insight on what you think I should do, but like at the end of the day, I need somebody who knows what it's like, who's been in college, who's experienced the beast. And no, it's a great idea to have some, because there's a lot of people that don't have that.
Can you talk about your kind of like, not necessarily full transition, but your transition from biologist to professor to an administrator? How that come about?
um, Accidentally, um, you know, so
And then most of that probably happened at App State.
yes, so I was at James Cook University in Australia, and I worked in the medical school there, and I was on the regional campus, so Cairns, which was 4 hours drive from the main campus, and I used to fly between campuses, pretty much 2 or 3 times a week, and but I learned a lot of things about a lot of administrative skills because I was kind of the rep on that campus, and they really wanted to push me more into administration, but I was young and I loved my research and I don't want to be put in an office, and so that's when I talked to my husband about moving back to America, because I postdoced over here, and so I was an associate professor, and I said, would you like to move back to America? And he said, sure. So
Did he really say sure? Was
yeah, no, it was like sure, yeah,
Okay.
that works because we loved living here,
Okay.
and when and I think once you sort of leave your home country, things are not the same when you ever go back. So it's a little different. So we made the decision that we were going to move. So we sold everything, packed up, moved to America, hoping I would get a job. I did have a temporary job at Georgia Southern, but I kind of hoped that I was going to be able to get a permanent job, and I did, and it was at Appalachian State. But I never would have had that opportunity if Georgia Southern really hadn't given me the opportunity to come back as a adjunct professor. And so, we landed, and I was lucky enough to get some interviews and actually got 3 offers.
Hmm.
And App was the one that we chose. And again, it was about research. So, but the thing that I loved about Appalachian was the students. When I gave my research seminar, I had so many students coming up to me asking about working in my lab. And that is really what hooked me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I always had students in my lab, all the way from freshmen up to graduate students.
You want to explain to like our listeners what you researched?
I am a physiologist, and I study how organisms get rid of wastes out of their body. Ammonia is one, and carbon dioxide is another. And so basically, I study ion transport, the movement of ions, acids, bases, all of that sort of stuff. But I work on a fabulous organism called a hagfish.
Mm-hmm.
And hagfish are bottom-dwelling organisms that live on the bottom of the ocean. They have the ability to invade a dead whale in the inside, and they eat their way out. Now, I don't know if any of you 3 had a goldfish.
I had so many goldfish.
And how many of those goldfish ended up floating belly up?
Oh, they were dead. We've probably had more than 20, and one ate the rest of them.
Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
so it was
Okay.
like a cannibalist.
So I will say that they probably died because there was too much ammonia in the water. But hagfish don't care. They're like, bring it on. So they can live inside the nastiest of things, and they really don't care. But they have the same genes in their body that you have right now in their kidneys. And so I like to study how these gene families have evolved through time, and how they've adapted as a result of the environment's change. So that's really what I started out doing. And so I actually was fairly successful in that and got some federal funds. And then somebody came and said, would you be assistant chair of the department? And I was like, well, sure.
It's not a huge step. It's not
It was more about the fact that, I'd had the experience and it was going to be a seamless transition.
You'd still be talking to students.
I'd
You'd
still be meeting the
teaching.
students. I'd still be with teaching. I'd still be able to do my research. Sure. And that lasted for 2.5 years. And then I became chair of the department. And that's really where it all started to turn. At some point, when people keep giving you things to do, such as administrative tasks, you kind of at some point have to stop running. I mean, I ran away from Australia because I didn't want to be an administrator. And that the irony is not lost on me that I am sitting here today as a president of a university, but I never actually career planned to be a president of a university. And so that's how it started, was really as a chair of the department. And then I moved into the vice provost for faculty affairs, and then applied to become provost here at Wright State. And that was in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And,
You're the same age as Adam and I.
That's right. That's right. So we all arrived at the same time.
Yep.
We
And
did.
So, and then President, Schrader stepped down in 2019, and I became president in 2020.
What would you say is, I'm not going to give numbers, your biggest successes here so far? And on the other hand, what have been your biggest challenges? And those could be the same thing.
That's an interesting question. There's been a lot of challenges. And
One after another after another.
but my father, who sadly just recently passed, always used to say to me, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." And I think it really has made us stronger as an institution. Uh, Sadly, we had to go through an awful lot to actually come out better. But I do think we've come out better than what we went in.
Mhm,
And I can't really speak beyond 2018 because I wasn't here.
mhm.
And I would never speak, on something I really don't understand the ins and the outs of. But I think really where we are now, and I think you only have to wander around campus to really see that the energy is back. I do feel for the first time, certainly since I have been here, that the energy and the enthusiasm and the drive is high. And I think that's something I'm happy to see. Nothing I do is isolated. So I'm not responsible for any one item,
Mhm.
any one success. Um, you know, we work as a very big team. I think one of the most successful things is I've brought on Provost Thompson, who's
Mhm.
absolutely awesome. And I think that is exactly what we need. And I'm also proud that we brought on, Susan Schauer, our VP of Enrollment. She's fantastic. We actually have a VP of Inclusive Excellence, which we've never had before. These are the things that are important because it's important to our students. And again, I know you probably think, well, everything goes back to the students. Absolutely. And that's the way it should be. So, what I'm proud that we are aiming to do is to change the culture to being extremely student centric so that our students, no matter what background they come from, can be successful. And that also comes with challenges
Mhm.
because when you're trying to shift the culture of an organization, um, not everybody is comfortable with that. Change is uncomfortable. And when you're uncomfortable leads to animosity and anger and frustration. And we've seen some of that. But, it doesn't stop you from moving forward. Primarily because you're going to see higher education undergo a lot of change in this country. And you only have to pick up a newspaper to open it up, to read the stories. And so we're ahead of the curve. And, you know, I think that is something that we're going to see is this evolution of higher education. Then that doesn't mean that it's going to change insurmountably. Education, academic experience is the heart of why students come is to get an education. I want to provide a high quality education at an affordable price, and it can be done. Um, and the quality, I want to make sure we've got quality assurance to ensure that our students are getting that quality education. And we have amazing professors, that really do provide that high quality. So that's what I'm saying. We're moving into the future, but the future of higher education is going to look very different. And really, one of the reasons we're doing a 2-year bridge plan right now is because we really don't understand the full impact and ramifications of COVID-19 on higher ed in this country. And so, by giving us a bit of breathing room with a 2-year bridging plan, is going to allow us that flexibility to go, okay, now we're ready to launch. This is what we're going to focus on. This is what we're going to do. Um, and I think it's the energy that and the sessions that we've had, the feedback sessions we've had, they've been very positive. So I think we're on the right path. So in a long way, I'm proud of many things, but no one thing is done in isolation. It's done by a team of highly dedicated people who live, breathe, eat, and drink Wright State 24/7.
Rowdy Raiders. Um, so I mean, I haven't really told many people here this, but my mom got her master's degree here. She's a former veteran, and she won. She got selected for a free full ride scholarship
Wow.
from the VA. So I'm in 4th, 5th grade, and every Sunday, she's bringing me here to Dunbar as a little fifth grader, and I'm running around the library and playing around, and everything goes full circle. But
Yeah.
she was in the nursing program, like I mentioned, and again, nursing is a second language to me. I mean, I don't understand any of it, but you can see how evolved our nursing program has gotten. For
hmm
instance, I
hmm
mean, we now have a 3-year program.
We
I mean,
do. So that's a 3 year. So basically, it's the 4 year program condensed into the 2 semesters and a summer. So we've kind of condensed it. And one of the reasons being was, we'd heard from industry partners that there's a huge nursing. I mean, again, open a newspaper, huge nursing shortage across the country. So how can we ensure that we're again maintaining quality, but getting these students opportunities to get into the workforce sooner? Um, that was just and we were that was just one of those opportunities that I thought, well, this is logic, and let's see if it flies, and people actually have embraced it. So I mean, it's not without challenges, because it actually means that our nursing faculty had to sort of realign all of their materials, but I'm just truly thankful to those nursing faculty for championing it, because our healthcare partners desperately need those graduates.
it's been a hit. I mean, it's reeling students in left and right. So it's been fun to see the evolution of the nursing programs from when my mom was here
Yeah,
to now.
yeah.
If you are, what are like, and if you can share, but like, what are some initiatives that are happening right now that you are like incredibly excited about?
Oh, the aviation program.
I don't quite understand. So explain. So
So
I was
this
like, wait, are they?
we're
do-
not so
do-
so this is a program that we're actually doing in partnership with First in Flight, which is an FAA qualified flight school, which is located out at the Dayton Airport, out in Centerville, the airport, the Wright Brothers Airport out there. They are one of the highest qualified flight schools in the state to work with higher education. They are offering the opportunity for students to register for classes here at Wright State, perhaps as elective classes.
Ignore them.
Okay, elective classes, and they're able then to take ground. Um, I'm going to get this wrong. Ground school sounds about right. Classes with the flight school, and then advance from there. So it's a value add, to so you could get a degree in communications and actually take flight classes at the same time.
So is it almost like a micro credential you get? Like,
It's almost, it's a certification.
okay,
It's an
okay.
additional certification. So you know, and one of the reasons is, again, open the newspaper. What do you see? There's a massive national pilot shortage. So again, if you have a 4 year degree, you need less flight hours than if you don't have a 4 year degree. And you have to have a 4 year degree in order for commercial airlines to hire you. So again, just another opportunity for our students. So that's really
It's like peanut
exciting.
butter and jelly.
Yes, yes, peanut butter and
Back to
jelly.
the peanut butter.
Yes. Oh no, nasty
But
peanut
That was a good one.
butter.
are there any other initiatives that you're just?
Yeah, the work that we're doing with the base. We've been doing a lot of work with the base, and we're furthering that relationship, and that's been incredibly exciting to do, and more to come on that shortly. But there's a lot to be really excited about. I mean, we could spend more than an hour just talking about all of the exciting things that are heading our way. We've got new deans on the campus, and they and provost have hit the ground sprinting. I mean, they are bringing new ideas and fresh ideas to campus from other institutions, and they're challenging us. Why do we do it that way? Oh, because we've always done it that way.
Mhm.
Well, let's have a look at that. How could we do that more effectively if we gave it some tweaks?
We have, obviously, first of all, we have our new dean. For
Yes.
a lot of us that are in liberal arts, they are. He is like immersing himself in as many experiences as possible, and it's almost foreign to see. So it's almost like, oh, okay, yeah, you want to come and read poetry on the air? Okay, yeah, sure. And then since we have a new chair and the new structure, they've been really, because adamant about like, okay, we have experiences that are giving experiential learning.
Yes.
Why are we not putting that part as the degree program's co-curriculum? Like, why is that not integrated into the experience? Like,
Exactly.
so like one example, like I had an idea when I talked to the chair was like, okay, we have two groups here that are giving almost professional experience.
Yes.
There's just not a skilled educator in the room.
Yep. Yep.
So put a skilled educator in the room, and then instead of doing an internship, they now have an on-campus experiential learning experience that they can use towards the degree program. And it was like, oh, that's so. So I'm like, guys, the stuff's here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we already have the experiences here. Let's, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yep. And I think that we're constantly talking about how to expand experiential learning opportunities. And for many of us, we actually look and we say, right here in our own offices, you want to be an accountant? Guess what? We need accountants. You want to do media? Guess what? We have a communications department. We have a marketing department. We have so many opportunities just internally with, our own organization. And then you tap into external organizations and that's really what we're looking at. How can we provide as many students, if not every student, although I'll probably have someone having a conniption if they're listening to me, every student on campus, the ability to have an experiential learning opportunity or several experiential learning opportunities. We have amazing scientists on this campus, but finding students to work in their labs that want to understand research and engage with the research, they're having a hard time attracting students to their labs. And I think it's just because people may not actually know what's going on. So that's the next thing is, right, well, how do we get this out more? And how do we communicate better with students? Because email doesn't work. Twitter doesn't work.
that's a big conversation that happens next door.
Oh, see, I do like that. I love the fact that we're over.
Well, there's also, I'm not going to jump into the whole thing, but if you're in family groups and stuff like that, but we've kind of learned is that we don't know how to communicate with students,
Uh-huh.
and the students don't know how to communicate with us.
Yes.
So it's like, I'm bored, even though, like, for example, we were talking, and like, I'm bored, but did you know that there has been, just from student orgs alone, 700 events and meetings since the beginning of school started?
Well, I know. And really, if you just go to Quark,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I can sit here and tell you all the things that are happening this weekend just on Quark.
It's interesting, and then the parents are a lot more engaged than I was.
Yeah.
Then I was talking, I was like, well, Bella, your mom's always commenting on this.
My
I
mom
think
is always on that Facebook page defending us because I'm going to be honest, I do get upset when parents are basically just putting the rest of the school down, being like, they're not doing enough for our students. I'm an RA personally.
Yep.
And there was a couple parents being like, it's the RA's job to push them to do that. It's not. I want to get myself involved. I will bring residents to help get involved. But if you have that app, if you look at all the flyers, we do What's Up Wednesdays, stuff
Uh-huh.
like that. If you're on social media, you see new events happening on campus. Even if people knew me personally, I'm everywhere.
Yes, you are, Bella. I know that. You
Yes.
are everywhere.
So Wright State does a lot for the
Mm.
students, and I just don't think that we get recognized enough for the communication because SIL puts stuff out there every day, multiple times a day. The residents just don't see it. I don't know.
Well, I always say, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it to drink.
Mhm.
And what our role is to provide as many opportunities as possible.
Yeah.
And I know that that's what's happening across campus. I just walked through the student union atrium, and we've got our miracle makers out there pieing people in the face. I think I just paid a lot of money to pie somebody in the face. But that was me last year getting the pie in the face. But they're out there, they're doing things, and there's a lot of students out there engaging in writing cards to thank our healthcare workers at Dayton Children's. Those sorts of things are happening every single day on campus in different locations. But it's how do we engage those students? And I would say the students this year are way more engaged
Mhm.
than ever. But there's always
In the same way, something is that like, but also their parents are engaging differently.
Yeah.
Where like my mom texts me and she's like, "What in the world are these parents complaining?" Like, she's like, "I would never do that. Like, I would never have done that with you." And I'm like, "It's interesting. It's interesting seeing where like even like it's almost like a micro generation."
Well, I think, just think about it. I think about what we carry around with us every all the time. I didn't have one of these when I first started. And this is a generation of parents that probably have grown up with Facebook, and whereas the generation before didn't. I mean, if they had concerns, they'd pick up the phone or they'd
Mhm.
write an email or something like that. So I think that's just because it's the cultural, it's that connection
Yeah.
that they've had with the medium. But it's always a challenge because the world is. I mean, everyone lives their world on social media.
Next door, we have a new, we call it an involvement team. It's
Uh-huh.
it's a new group of students, and their job is just they mentor, but their job is to strategize.
Yeah.
So we call it like at the beginning we called it boot camp, and now we call it like war room. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. But what we do, we did a presentation, and we talked about like addressing a loneliness epidemic and
Yeah.
how we can like cater our services to work in those ways. And I posed a question, and I said, "Do you think that social media is the solution, or do you think it's the problem?" And there was so much disagreement. And I said, "I think it's the problem." I said because one thing we learned, not I'm thinking of someone else, but one thing I learned in a class is that marketing, 93% of marketing is word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, when you're advertising your event, don't be posting on social media because they're not seeing it.
No.
You need to go and walk
Yeah.
and hand out your flyers. Go and walk and talk about your events. And if you're, recruiting for your fraternity, wear your letters out to Starbucks. And that's the way you're going to
Start a
conversation.
conversation.
Yes,
Exactly.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, but
And I think, we've become more of an insular society, and I always say we've lost the art of a conversation. People are not, they're a little bit reticent to engage. And of course, you know what I'm like. I jump in front of people.
Mhm.
Hi, how you doing? How's it going? And that's just really because that personal connection is really why people stay. That personal connection is really why people thrive. So, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. It's even a challenge for our professors in the classroom
Mhm.
because nobody will go to office hours.
Yeah.
And they're
Guilty.
waiting for them to come to office hours, so that they can help them.
And I didn't use the word epidemic, but that's been an issue for forever, right?
Yes.
It's been
And
my
it's
professor's intimidating. I'm scared to talk to them.
No, and it's not just here.
Yeah.
It's all across the world.
Yeah.
It's not just a Wright State phenomenon. It's actually, all across the world. And so, and really, again, I come back to professors are humans too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece. We have to get back to treating each other as humans first, and not worry about who's got a title and who doesn't have a title, and that we're all humans to begin with, and get back to really having conversations.
I just watched a movie yesterday, and it was called Mr. Harrigan's Phone. And basically, it was a Stephen King novel, and I watched it, and I was so excited to watch it. But this kid liked to read this older gentleman books.
Uh-huh.
And the kid got a cell phone. He really wanted one. This is when cell phones first came out, like the Apple iPhone. And he saved up his money and gave the old man a phone. And it shows like the way technology impacts people. And it's just like everyone's on their phone 24/7. They show the kids like they don't speak to one another. The boy texts this girl that he likes, only texts her. You never see them talk in the movie. And then the old man is on his phone while the kid's still reading him books. So it just shows that people are still connected on their phones. And I think that is a problem nowadays. We could post on social media at the radio station 7,000 times a day and say, stop in, we have free stuff. You can record a liner. People
Yeah.
can be on their phones, see that, say, oh, I want to go, but still never go because of the personal interaction. I think that
Yeah.
a lot of people are just scared nowadays to go up to one another and just speak to them and be like, hi, what's your name? Stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I think that it's a problem for everyone, and I really don't know how to fix it, but
Or they only want to go if a friend's going.
yes.
They still have the fear of missing out,
Yes.
but they would rather not go because they're not going to go
They don't
alone.
know anybody. And it is daunting, especially if you're an introvert, to go into a room where you don't know anybody.
Mhm.
And I still suffer from that when I go to events, because I'm actually, you guys will probably laugh, but I actually am an introvert.
Mhm.
And so when I go in, it's a little over, I mean, you're almost hyperventilating,
Sure.
but you have to get over it because it's my job to be out there. And so that kind of gives me that additional push. But for some people, it's debilitating, and we have to recognize that. But it's difficult. But once you engage that first time, it's like, oh, and you find out there's lots of people with lots of similarities and lots of commonalities, and you actually engage in a conversation, and you get to know people, and you go, gosh, I would never have met you if I hadn't gone to that.
Yeah. With my mom, if I'm with my mom, I have the most anxiety around other people. Like, usually I'll talk to anyone here, but if I'm with my mom, I'm like cowering behind her, like peeking my head out because I'm so nervous of other people. But it's like, that's what I do for a living. My job is to talk to other people and make a connection. So
Yeah.
it's just in different groups, but still, like, bring a friend. You're on campus. You live with people. If you're a commuter, you know someone in your class that'll probably want to go.
Exactly. And to your point about being bored, how many times, as a child, did you say to your parents, "I'm bored"?
Mm-hmm.
You
Every
know,
day.
and
I
my,
still say that.
yeah, and my parents would say, "Okay, outside, go find something to
Uh-huh.
do." You know,
For sure.
big difference in generation back then than now. But and that's the thing. The computers and the tech is kind of is an extra limb um, of ours now. So we've got to learn to put it down. And I am not the expert to talk about that.
Neither am I. My friends, I had to put my phone in the charging station upstairs, and they're like, "Oh, what are you going to do without your phone?" I was like, hey, listen, it's okay. Just let me have a minute.
Yep. I do get a lot of hard time from my husband about carrying my phone around, but my job is 24/7, so
Yeah.
it has to come with me.
I think it's interesting though, hearing you say that you are an introvert, like at heart. Yeah, I relate to that. I mean, like in high school, very small high school, we graduated with 115 in our class, so everybody knew everybody. Very small, and I was everybody's buddy practically, and I was played sports 3 seasons a year, very involved in school, and then upon graduating, a lot of my friends that I grew up with all moved away, and I was practically the only one that went to Wright State, despite living 15 minutes away from here. And so once that
Which is also intriguing.
once that phase came through, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like and so yeah, it's
Because you had to
definitely
start
interesting.
again. You had to
Yeah,
start again. You have to
no,
make
for
new
sure.
friends. You have to, and I sort of talk about that sometimes to folks, especially our international students. If they don't know anybody, they've moved to a new country, and I say I can relate to that. Because that's really what we had to do.
And that's where your priority of making people feel welcomed here really steps in.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes the difference. So.
Not to cut us off, do we have any closing remarks?
I do have one thing.
Okay.
Okay, so in Australia,
Yes.
do the toilets really flush backwards than here?
The water does, but that's a really interesting question.
I'm sorry, it like popped in my brain, and I was like, okay,
I think
that's why I
it's like
didn't talk
I
for
do
like
a
10
think-
Southern
minutes.
Hemisphere
I
thing.
think in the southern hemisphere, the water goes down drains in the opposite rotation, but everything's
Never knew
opposite,
that.
really.
Yeah,
Light switches are opposite.
Yeah, I was just like thinking about it. I didn't talk for 10 minutes because I was like, I don't know when it's a good time to interject to ask if the toilet's flushed
About
back.
toilet water.
And then I was thinking about the hagfish for a minute, and I was like thinking
Oh
about
my
movies. I
gosh.
was like, these fish just like go through dead whales, and we're just here. There's fish
and,
that
and
eat
what was the
whales.
biggest culture shock from?
I think because we're brought up with American television, and so we think we know America. But American culture is very different to Australian culture, and we're very direct. We're very direct, and we don't. There's usually no filter between what you think you're going to say and what you say. And installing filters was probably the biggest culture shock, because I had to learn to install, and sometimes I still forget to install filters. But we really we saw on television. Guess what? Wasn't really what was happening in real America. So that was probably the biggest thing, is thinking you knew the culture, but really not knowing the culture. Yeah.
It's quite deceiving.
Thank you so much for joining us
No,
today.
thank you so much. This was fun, guys.
This
I
was a blast.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I
And,
really appreciate it.
And may you stay awake until midnight.
See, being
Wow.
the impromptu wasn't that bad, was it?
No, it wasn't.
See?
It was not. It wasn't that bad.
Well, again, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to WWCU 106.9 FM, Fairborn, Dayton, Dayton's Right Choice, live on